Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to God. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah. I bear witness there is no other God but God, and He has no partners. So, God willing, today I want to talk about the religious duties that God has given us, and we should be looking at these as the subtitle indicates here. You know, it's actually a gift from God for us. These are not chores, but these are gifts that God has given us because we can use them to substantially grow our souls. They nourish our souls and prepare us for the day of judgment. You know, on the day of judgment, when all of us, we stand before God, people who have nourished their souls by doing the religious duties will be able to withstand God's physical presence. And those who will not be able to withstand God's physical presence, they will run to hell on their own volition. Themselves, they would run to hell. God obviously doesn't want to put a single disbeliever in hell, but it's the disbelievers who insist on going to hell. So on the day of judgment, literally these people will run to hell because they will not be able to withstand God's physical presence. And only those who have nourished their souls by worshiping God will be able to stand God's physical presence and not end up in hell. And so we understand that the reason why God has given us these religious duties is that, belief in God alone is not enough. Of course, belief is important, very important, because if we don't have the belief, all our works will be nullified. But just having the belief itself is not enough, because we have to also grow our souls on top of that. You know, people who don't do the religious duties that God has prescribed to us, but let's say, they're good people or just leading a good life by not being very evil. It's just like someone who's surviving in this world without having their main meals. Imagine someone who's just snacking all their lives. They're just like, imagine someone just surviving on peanuts or candies. How would they be, right, in terms of their health, versus people who are eating steak and lobsters and big meals every day. So these are the steak and lobster for our souls that God has given us. So these are gifts. Anybody who, if you have been eating candies and chips and just snacks your whole life, and someone gives you steak and lobster, you'll be thankful, because now you can really nourish your body, right? And same way is for our souls. God has given us these things so we can worship God freely and nourish our souls in leaps and bounds. So the 5 daily prayers are essential for our nourishment. Comparison of a righteous life without salat is like, having snacks without any meals. And this is a way that by which we make direct contact with God, right? I mean, contact prayers are not the same as any prayers. We establish direct contact with God, and that contact is mathematically coded. It's just like dialing a number. You have a direct contact with God by doing your contact prayer, unlike any other form of prayer or any other form of connection people may claim to have with God. So we have 5 daily contact prayers that are mentioned in the Quran. God talks about, the dawn prayer, which we do before sunrise. Then we have the noon prayer when the sun is at its highest point, declining from its highest point. And then you have the afternoon prayer, which is 3 to 4 hours before sunset. And then you have the sunset prayer, which happens right after sunset. And then you have the night prayer, which happens after the twilight disappears. And then you have the Friday prayer, which is the obligatory prayer, which is also mentioned in the Quran in Surah 62, verse 9, or Friday. And, missing the Friday prayer is a gross offense. And also missing, any of the 5 daily contact prayers on purpose is also, a disobedience or disregard of God's commands. Obviously, it may be difficult in the beginning to, do all of these practices if we are not accustomed to doing them. But as time goes on, as our soul grows, it'll become much easier for us to do these. And if you end up missing them, it's like you missed an important meal of your day, and you want to go ahead and nourish your soul by not missing any of your contact prayers. So the number of the prayers, is there for us. We have the structure of our prayers. It's a mathematical structure. I will go through the numbers to show how that mathematical structure works. But there is a very specific structure, as we know, to the contact prayers. You have 2 units for your dawn prayer. You have 4 units for your noon prayer. You have 4 units for your afternoon prayer, and then you have 3 units for your sunset prayer, and then you have 4 units again for your night prayer. So once you miss any of these prayers, we know that they cannot be made up. Like, there's no way that, for example, if you miss a prayer, then you'll do that prayer somehow. Once it's missed, it's gone. So we have to make use of the opportunity. We have to do the prayer on time when it is due. So basically, we understand that these prayers were given to us through Abraham. Abraham was a prophet of God, and he was given the mathematical. He was given these mathematically structured contact prayers. In fact, all the religious duties of submission, Islam, were given to Abraham. As documented in the Quran, and you can see the verses 835, 954. 16, 123, and 2173 for details on these commandments that God had given them. And then the distortions that are in the prayer that are being practiced by people, those are mentioned in the Quran. But obviously, Salat itself, on how to do it and how many units, each one of those details didn't have to be mentioned because they were already in practice at the time that the Quran was revealed to Muhammad. And we also know that the verses on what nullifies the ablution is mentioned in 3965. So we have, as I talked about, the mathematical structure of the Salat, right? So we have Surah 1, which is the key, Al-Fatiha, and then it has 17 rakats, right? So if you write the surah number and the number of verses for the Al-Fatiha, which is the surah which we use to make contact with God, it represents number 17, which is also why we have 17 rakats, in total that we do throughout the day. So it's a symbolic representation of that. And then if you write one for the surah number, so you write one for the Al-Fatiha, and then you write for the 7 verses, you write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This number is a multiple of 19, right? And this is just, obviously, as you can see, this is just a start. So now in this one, if you have one for the surah number, and then here, instead of the number of the verse, you write the number of letters, right? So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim has 19 letters. So you write 19, then Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen has 17 letters. So you write 1, then we are 19, then 17, then 12. These are all the number of letters in each one of these verses. So this long number is also a multiple of 19, right? Now, another part of it is, if in addition to the total number of letters in Bismillah, you write next to it, you write the geometrical value of Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So add the geometrical value of every letter in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you get 786 for Bismillah, right? Then you do the same for the second verse. You write the total number of letters, then you write the geometrical value. Then the total number of letters for this one, then you write the geometrical value. That long number that we see here, this long number is also a multiple of 19, subhanAllah. And so these are just the basics. So these are the properties of Surah 1. You can see these are the verse numbers, these are the numbers of letters, and these are the geometrical values of each and every letter in the Bismillah. Okay, so then here, instead of writing the geometrical value of every verse, let us write down the geometrical value of every individual letter in Surah 1. Right? So you write 1 for the surah number, you write 7 for its total number of verses, right? And then you write 1 for the first verse, then you write 19 for the number of letters in the first verse, and then you write the geometrical values side by side for each and every letter. So this is be, sin, meme, and so forth. You write the geometrical value of every letter. Then the same for the second one. You write the verse number, which is 2. Then you write 17 for the total number of letters. And then you write every single letter, the geometrical value. And you follow all the way the same pattern for all the 7 verses. So you get this big long number. This number, subhanAllah, it's also a multiple of 19, right? Okay, so this produces this number that I talked about. This is a 274-digit long number. That number is a multiple of 19, which verifies that the key is preserved fully by God. Every single letter is divinely preserved by God. If you change any single letter, that would break the mathematical combination of Al-Fatiha itself. So it's a very mathematically coded structure that God has given us to establish contact with Him. Now, since we cannot write very long numbers here, actually I do, in the next slide I will show the full number, but here you can see you have the 17, you write 17 first, which is the total number of rakats, or total number of units in our daily prayer, right? So you write 17. So every day, excluding Friday, right? Every day we do 17 units. On Friday, we do 2 units for the afternoon, for the noon, right? So the total number of units in Friday is 15. But on every other day, it's 17. So we write 17, then we write the number for the prayer, so 1 for dawn. Then dawn has 2 units, right? So we write 2 for dawn. Then for these 2 units, I'm putting 2 asterisks, right? These 2 asterisks will each one of these asterisk symbol I'm putting here, it represents this number, this long number here. This number is going to be 1 for the surah number, followed by the 7 verses. So surah 1 has 7 verses. Then I'll write the number of letters in surah 1, which is 139, right? Then the total geometrical value of the whole surah, which is 1,143, right? So I write 1 for the surah, right? Then I write 7 for the 7 verses. Then I write 139 for the total number of letters. Then I write the total geometrical value, right? So this number, I'm representing it by this symbol here, right? So I write 1 for the first, this number in each one of these asterisks, I'm replacing it. So let's say there's this long number 1712, and then there's an asterisk which basically is representing this number. So if you write this number once here for the first rakat, then again you write this long number here for the second rakat, and then you write number 2 for the noon prayer, and then you write the 4 rakats for 4 units, and then you put this number 4 times because that's 4 units, right? So you get this really long number. This is the long number that you get. Now this number itself, you see, is a multiple of 19, right? But the number itself, you look at the number of digits in this number is 4,636, right? So the number of digits itself, 4,636, is also a multiple of 19, which is 19 times 244, right? That's one thing. And then even if you add the digits, so 4 plus 6 plus 3 plus 6, that also equals 19, subhanAllah, right? And this, and again, that number, 4,636 digit long number, that number is a multiple of 19. So you can see this long number, that's a multiple of 19. So right, so originally in the this was mentioned in the appendix, right? These details were mentioned in the appendix, but these numbers were not printed in the appendix 15. So later I was able to get these numbers, and just even getting these numbers on the computer, I was making mistakes, right? But finally, I put the number right, and we can see each one of these numbers are multiples of 19. So, this allows us with this computer age, to be able to see these numbers. This allows us to really appreciate and understand how amazing of a gift it is that God has given these mathematically coded practices to us as a gift for us to establish direct contact with God. So with this, let's repent now. Tubu ilallah. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to God. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. I bear witness there is no other God but God, and He has no partners. So going back to where we left off, right? So now, if you look at the Friday prayers, now the Friday prayers has 15 units, as I mentioned, instead of 17. And so let's adjust this number for 15, and we can see the number still is a multiple of 19. So here, I have, instead of 17, previously I had 17, now I have 15 here, right? And then you still have put this long number in twice here, twice here. So as it says, over here, you put 4 because you still have the 2 sermons, right? So so you have 1 for the prayer number, then you have 2 for the number of units in that prayer. So then you have, for the Friday prayer, you have 2 for the second prayer, it represents 2. But it has 4 units because you have 4 sermons. However, you're only doing the Al-Fatiha twice, right? So we've only put Al-Fatiha twice. That's the reason. And then you have 3 for the afternoon, then it has 4 rakahs, right? 4 units. So you put 4 here, and then it's, added 4 times here, side by side, put together. And then you have this long number. Again, this number is also a multiple of 19. Now, I understand these are long numbers. It takes some time for you to absorb it. So, don't worry. Go through it. Take your time, But these numbers, you can put them in the calculator. In the submission app, there's a calculator, and you can see these numbers are multiples of 19. You can verify them yourself. So you get this long number. This is the complete number. And you can see this number is a multiple of 19. This is the number itself is a multiple of 19. And then there's another part of it, right? You think that this is it, but it's actually not over yet, because previously for this asterisk, we put a very long number, right? It was a different number. But then you can have other combinations to represent Surah 1, which if you put in here in place of this asterisk, it will also be a multiple of 19. So for example, if we write down 1 for the Surah number, here, right? Followed by the 7 for the 7 verses, followed by the total number of letters in Surah 1, which is 139, followed by the geometrical value, which is 1001.43, right? So if you put this number here for the daily prayers, that number is also a multiple of 19. Then you do the same for Friday prayers. For Friday prayers, you have this number, you have 15, and then you have 2 for the number of units, like this. Then you have 4 again for the 4 units in the Friday prayer with 2, actual units of the prayer, and so forth. And that number also is a multiple of 19. So basically what that confirms to us is the bowing, the prostration, and the tashahuds, the numbers of each and every one, all of that is divinely preserved. When you put these numbers together to represent each and every aspect of the prayer, you get a multiple that is also a number of 19. And so you can see that here in this verse, right? So if you write down the number of the prayers with the bowing, which is the ruku and the sujood and the tashahuds, how many you have in each prayer, right? You write that. That number is a multiple of 19. So you write one for the Surah Al-Fatiha, right? That you recite in the prayer. Then you write one for the number of the salat. So one represents dawn, two represents noon, then afternoon, then Maghrib, and then Isha, right? So you have that, and then you have the number of rukus. You have two. Then you have the sujood. You have two, and then you have the tashahuds, which is also present there. So you have that, and then you have second for the second one and the third one. So as you can see here, I've summarized it, right? So you have the long number consists of one for the Surah 1, which we recite for the 5 daily contact prayers. Then you write the number of the first prayer, which is 1. Then you write the number of times you mention, recite the key. You recite the key in the dawn prayer twice, right? Then you have the number of rukus, which is twice. Then you have the number of prostrations, which is 4. And then you have the number of the shahads in the sitting position, which is 1, right? In the prayer. So you have this long number. So this represents the first salat. This represents the noon. This represents afternoon. This represents sunset. And this represents night prayer. And that long number is also multiple of 19. So that shows to us that we are not adding or removing any single part, and we're doing it exactly the way God has prescribed it. We have the divinely preserved structure for the entire contact prayers. You have so many groups out there that will tell you to pray this way and pray that way. And some people nowadays, if you go, for example, in the US, you have all these groups, and some people say there's 3 prayers. Some people say, no, there are no prayers. And yet we can see that the messenger of the covenant, by God's leave, God informed us through his messenger about the full, complete structure of the contact prayer, and what to say, and for each one of the units, how many they are. All of that is divinely preserved, and God has given us the proof to have the full assurity that what we're doing is divinely preserved from God, right? So we have no confusion, no doubt, no ambiguity, and we are certain that the way we are worshiping God is the way God wanted us to worship him, and that, if we do it every day, that will be counted for us in our daily record. Also, if you look at the recitation of the key al-Fatiha itself, it is mathematically coded, even visually, in the simplest way. If you look at the geometrical values of the B's and the Bays and the memes, right? So they add up to be a multiple of 19, and your lips will actually touch exactly 19 times. So these are the 19 times you can see that your lips will touch. Every time you pronounce these letters, either the Bay or the M, the meme, they will be touching your lips. So that's 19 times. So then also, if you look at the geometrical values of the B's and the M's, and you add them together, that's a total of 608, which is again also a multiple of 19. You can say it out loud with us if you want. Okay, the translate. Okay. All right. So the next part of it is our obligatory charity or zakat. So we know that in the Quran, Surah 6, verse 141 tells us that zakat should be given on the day of harvest. So every time, since we don't harvest like crops and stuff, we harvest our paychecks, whenever we get income, any income. So 2.5% of any income that we get should be given to our parents, or the relatives, or the orphans, or the poor, or the traveling alien. So this is the order in which you're supposed to give your zakat every time you get paid. So you see, whoever is in the order, you give it to them. So first in the order is your parents. And if your parents, let's say they don't have a need for it, then you can go to the second category, which is your relatives. If your relatives are not in need of your zakat, then you can give it to the orphans. If not the orphans, then the poor, and otherwise the traveling aliens. So this is the order in which God has given us the commandment to give our zakat. Every time we get paid, every time you get a paycheck, you pay 2.5% from that. And then the importance for zakat is, specified in Surah 7, verse 106, that, it's the righteous people who give zakat, obviously that, God will remit their sins and, continue to guide them with His mercy. And we understand that it must be calculated correctly. So every time you get paid, you precisely calculate the 2.5%. Obviously, if you want to pay more on top of it, you're free to pay any excess on top of it if you can afford, right? Whatever is excess. But this is the minimum amount that every person must pay every time they get paid, right? And if you, let's say you're doing a business or something and you have constant flow of money, so you can keep collecting money until you have enough, but you don't exceed more than 1 month maximum. Just pay at least, once a month if you're getting a constant flow of income, let's say, to a business or something where you're not getting a constantly, frequented paycheck every 2 weeks or something. And we understand that, it cannot be replaced by other donations. For example, if some people like to pay to the mosques or pay to the charities and stuff like that. That's not to be replaced by that. Your zakat should specifically be given to the people around you, the people that are mentioned in the order that God has mentioned. You give it to the people you know. So we can understand that the way the people are doing it is completely wrong. And then you have the fasting, which is of Ramadan, which is mentioned in Surah 2, verse 183 to 187. And we know that there are many benefits of fasting. There's spiritual benefits. Obviously, it's about training your soul. It's about making your soul the driver of your body, not the other way around, because the body wants all the worldly pleasures, but the soul is the one that needs to be in charge. The soul needs to grow. The soul needs to be stronger. So every time we're fasting, we are suppressing the need of our body, over the need of our soul, which is the growth of our soul, which is to worship God, which is to follow God. And then the physical benefits of it, obviously, it restores your stomach size. For example, you may have been overeating or whatever, but when you do fasting, it helps restore the size of your stomach. It lowers your blood pressure. It detoxifies your body. It gives rest for your kidneys, reduces the harmful fat in your body. So all these are benefits that we have that are, part of fasting that God has given to us. And then once in a lifetime, we're supposed to observe Hajj and Umrah, if we can afford it, right? It's something that is there for you once in a lifetime to do if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, obviously, it's not there for you. But, if you can afford it, then God says that we must do it. And there are 4 sacred months that are mentioned in the Quran in which you can perform Hajj. Now we understand that the Saudis, for example, for their own convenience, they have reduced the Hajj to a very small period, which lets people go to Hajj for their own convenience. They make it difficult for others. For one, the demand, they can charge more money because they have less rooms for people and they charge premium prices for that. And also, it really makes it very hard for people. A lot of people die. It's a frequent occurrence now. People are completely desensitized to it. Many people die during Hajj, and it's not even. A lot of times, it's not even in the news. It's not even a big deal because it's a recurring thing now. But based on the Quran, we understand that these are the 4 sacred months: Dhul Hajj, Muharram, Safar, and Rabiul Awwal. So the rituals for the prayer are actually for the Hajj is very simple. We know the traditional Muslims have made everything difficult and complicated, but it's very simple. Basically, you have the ihram, which is the state of sanctity that you wear, and while you're wearing the ihram, you refrain from sexual intercourse or any arguments with people, and then you circumvent the Kaaba 7 times. Then you go to Safa and Marwa and you circumvent that 7 times. And then you go to Arafat for worship and meditation. And then you have followed by the symbolic stoning of Satan in Mina. And these are the simple, in a nutshell, the steps for the Hajj rituals. And we understand that the distortions that have happened. You have the altering of the sacred months, that they changed it to Rajab, Zulqa'dah, Zulhajj, and Muharram, and then you have the idolatry, which has been put in there by Satan to nullify the Hajj. You have people nullifying their Hajj every time they go to Hajj. They go visit Muhammad's tomb in Medina, and which contradicts the Quran and even contradicts the Hadith itself. And then you have the physical benefits we can see for all of these practices, right? You have Salat, which prevents things like arthritis, because you're constantly moving periodically, and then prevents things like depression, prevents things like headaches. Ablution, prevents things like colon cancer, because it frequently encourages you to go to the bathroom. You have the fasting, which lowers your blood pressure and detoxifies your body. You have the Zakat and the Hajj. Both of them have social and economic benefits on top of it. So all these benefits are there. And then, so we understand that these religious duties, as we saw, these are all gifts from God. So we should look at them as gifts, as opportunities. When someone gives you a gift, you cherish it, you love it, you look forward to using it and taking the most benefit out of it, right? And we have the mathematical miracle that confirms the authenticity of our practices, not just the contact prayers, but even the zakat and fasting and Hajj. They are also mathematically confirmed by God. And so we have God's system that is given to us. It's completely perfect. It's mathematically confirmed and proven, so we understand that everything that God has given us is divinely preserved and not, invention of any person. So we can be rest assured that, when we're doing these practices, we are following God's direct orders and we are growing our soul substantially, so we can withstand God's physical presence and eventually, be redeemed by God, which is the goal of us, to be successful in the hereafter. So with this, let's pray now. Aqimus Salat.